Okay, so I want to be extremely clear right out of the gate here.
Yeah, setting the ground rules early.
Exactly. Because this isn't, and I really cannot stress this enough, this is not some casual entertainment. We aren't here to sell you a mattress or give you some fluffy inspirational quote for your social media.
No, definitely not. If you're tuning in looking for, 5 easy steps to a happier you or whatever, you're absolutely in the wrong room today.
Right. This is a clinical audit.
It's a forensic examination.
Yes. We are strictly looking at the receipts today. And I have the file right here. The research compiled by Sahara Efron and Sahara Efron. And let me tell you, looking through this data, these receipts are, well, they're messy.
They're incredibly messy, incriminating, really.
Highly
It
incriminating.
really has this forensic vibe to it, doesn't
Yeah.
it? When I was reading through the data, it felt like sitting in a basement room surrounded by boxes of shredded documents, just trying to piece together an active crime scene.
And the crime scene in this case is, well, it's reality itself.
Or at least the version of reality we've been handed, the one we've been sold.
That is the perfect way to frame it. So we are officially designating this deep dive case study 001, the original code versus the human patch.
The series premiere of the human experience, basically.
Right, the series premieres. And the premise Efron and Erfron lay out is terrifyingly simple. They argue that there is this source intent,
The original code.
right, the original code of what it actually means to be human.
Mhm.
But then there's this massive overlay on top of it.
This really clumsy, suffocating administrative layer.
Exactly, which the researchers call the human patch.
And the wild thing is that patch is what almost every single person listening right now thinks of as just real life.
They think it's the default setting. But our mission today is to audit that, to go back to the literal technical blueprint. And I want to be clear about this, not the Sunday school version.
Please no.
We are looking at the technical corporate ledger. And to do that, we have to identify the antagonist right away. In the research notes, they refer to this entity as the Superhead.
The Superhead, which I know sounds like a comic book villain,
It really does.
but it's actually far more insidious than that. Efron and Erfron define the Superhead as the collective ecosystem.
The administrative layer itself.
Right. It's
Yeah.
that class of elite management. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about ancient priesthoods from 3,000 years ago or Silicon Valley technocrats today, they serve the exact same function.
They insist on standing directly between you and the source.
They're the ultimate middlemen, the ultimate gatekeepers. They're the ones standing there with a clipboard saying, hey, you can't just talk to the CEO directly. You have to fill out these specific forms.
Pay this subscription fee?
Right, pay the fee, jump through the hoops, and maybe if you're a good little citizen, we'll pass a message along for you.
They're essentially charging you rent for your own existence.
That's exactly what it is.
So to really get to the bottom of this mechanism, we have a primary directive from the researchers. We have to strip away all the propaganda.
This is where Efron and Erfron get wonderfully aggressive in their methodology.
They do. They demand that we completely ignore the theology, ignore the religious overlays. We have to treat these ancient texts, specifically the Hebrew source text, purely as a technical manual.
Which I honestly love. Because the moment you stop reading this stuff as, wholly untouchable scripture and start reading it as raw code, the glitches in the translation become glaringly obvious.
They really do.
Mhm.
And we're going to use two main tools today to expose those glitches. First is forensic linguistics.
Wow.
Tearing apart the actual Hebrew root words.
Down to the vowels and the syllables.
Yeah, exactly. And the second tool is applying this socio-political concept called hypernormalization.
Which is such a heavy term.
It is. We will dig deep into the mechanics of it later, but
Yeah.
just to give you a working definition right now, hypernormalization is essentially that feeling you get when you're sitting in a corporate meeting that makes absolutely zero sense.
Oh, we've all been there.
You're looking at a spreadsheet that is clearly fabricated, the metrics are made up,
Right.
and everyone in the room, the interns, everyone just acts like it's totally normal and real
Yeah.
because nobody can even imagine an alternative.
You're performing a ritual that you know is fake. You're living inside a lie simply because the lie has become the only map available to navigate the system.
Exactly. So here's the roadmap for this deep dive. We're going to start by restoring the linguistic integrity of one specific word, Bereshit.
That's a massive one.
It is. We're going to show you exactly how our modern concept of time is actually a control mechanism.
A literal administrative pact.
Right. Then we're going to audit the file on another word bin. And we'll uncover why the standard translation of that word as son is a deliberate mistranslation designed to keep you small.
To keep you manageable.
Exactly. Then we'll diagnose what the researchers call the burden of perfection. We're going to look at it as actual psychological malware installed in your operating system. And
Then we get to the really scary part.
we do. We trace the 1953 trust, and we connect all of this ancient textual manipulation directly to the modern biological DNA seed war that is escalating right now as we head into 2026.
It is a totally packed docket today.
It is. So let's just open the file. Let's start the audit. Section 1, the linguistic restoration of Bereshit. Now, if you were to walk into literally any hotel room in America right now, open the nightstand drawer and pull out that little Gideon Bible, what are the very first 3 words you're going to read?
In the beginning.
In the beginning. It seems totally harmless, right?
It sounds like a fairy tale, once upon a time.
Exactly. It sets the scene. But according to this forensic audit by Efron and Irfan, those 3 words are the first and arguably the most devastating administrative glitch in the entire human patch.
Which sounds incredibly dramatic to say out loud, calling in the beginning a glitch. But you really have to think about what those words actually do to your brain the second you read them.
They set a parameter.
They do. In the beginning implies a specific localized moment on a linear timeline. It officially starts the clock. Tick-tock.
And logically, if there is a definitive beginning, there must be an end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It constructs a straight line. And the moment you manage to trap a human consciousness on a linear timeline, you completely own them.
Because now you can introduce a whole new set of variables.
Yeah.
You can introduce anxiety.
You can tell them they're running late.
Right. You haven't achieved enough for your age.
Time is running out. The end times are right around the corner. It instantly turns the baseline of human existence into a stressful schedule that needs to be constantly managed.
By managers.
Precisely.
By the superhead.
But let's look at the actual receipts here. When Efron and Irfan pull up the Masoretic text, the raw Hebrew data, the word isn't in the beginning. The word is Bereshit.
Right.
Now, neither of us are native Hebrew linguists, but the researchers break this down forensically. They point out the specific vocalization. It's Bereshit.
And that vocalization right there is the absolute smoking gun in this audit.
Yeah.
Because grammatically speaking, that specific word structure is anarthrous.
Okay, break that down for us. What does anarthrous mean in this context? It's a technical term that simply means it lacks the definite article. It completely lacks the word the.
It's missing the.
Exactly. In biblical Hebrew, if the original author actually wanted to say in the beginning, like pointing to a specific undeniable point in time, they would have written barash. They would have used a patach vowel under the bet character.
But the data shows they didn't do that.
They absolutely didn't. They wrote barash with a shvav vowel, no definite article.
Meaning it literally cannot translate to in the beginning.
No, it can't. It is not pointing to a spot on a calendar. It is not a historical timestamp. It describes a state of being.
Okay, give us an analogy for that. How does that work?
Think of it like this. If I tell you right now I am in school, I don't necessarily mean I am physically standing inside a brick and mortar building right this second.
Right, you could be at a coffee shop.
Exactly. What I mean is that I am currently in the process or the general state of being educated. It is a function I am participating in, not a location in space or time.
So Bereshit isn't once upon a time. It's not a historical event that happened and ended. The researchers call it a cipher. They suggest it actually functions as source intent.
Or original frequency.
Right, or headship, using the instrument of first intent.
Yes. So a much more accurate technical reading would be something like, in a state of source frequency, God created, and so on.
The researchers also link this heavily to the concept of Chokmah.
Wisdom.
Right, wisdom.
Yeah.
Meaning, this text, this series premieres. It isn't a history book trying to explain what happened in the dirt billions of years ago. It is an active structural blueprint of resonance.
It is describing the operating system that is currently running right now, in this exact moment.
Which is a completely massive paradigm shift when you really internalize it.
It shatters the whole framework.
Because if it's just history, if it's just in the beginning, then it's back there. It's dead dust. It has nothing to do with me sitting here today. But if it translates to original frequency, that implies this creation event isn't an event at all. It's a constant state.
It's a continuous signal that is still broadcasting right now through you.
And that right there is exactly why the Superhead mistranslated it in the first place.
They had to. By imposing that patch, By changing it to in the beginning, they successfully made the entire system external to you.
They took it out of your body.
They made it a timeline you happen to live in rather than a frequency you actively live from. They surgically detached the commoner from the source intent.
It's essentially the very first act of copywriting reality.
That's brilliant, yes.
The administrative layer steps in and says, well, look, you weren't there at the start. You're just a late arrival on this timeline. So obviously you need us, the authorized priests, the elite experts, the domain managers, to explain it all to you.
You need us to interpret the data because you missed the beginning. Trust the science, trust the theology, trust the approved institutional process.
Anything and everything except trust your own direct connection to the source.
Exactly. Keep them reliant on the patch.
And there is actually mathematical verification for this in the file. Efron and Erfron call it the sonic audit. Did you review the structure of those opening verses?
I did, and honestly, it is undeniable when you look at the raw numbers. The very first verse in the Hebrew code contains exactly 7 words.
7 words.
And then the second verse contains exactly 14 words.
7. And then double 7.
Right. That is not casual storytelling. People don't naturally narrate history in perfect mathematical multiples like that. That is a stabilizer.
A mathematical equilibrium.
It's a harmonic pulse embedded directly into the text. The original code is literally rhythmic. It's explosive. When you speak it aloud, Bereshit bara Elohim, it utilizes actual onomatopoeia.
Words that biologically sound like the physical action they're describing.
Exactly. It has this incredible percussive force to it. It sounds like a drumbeat, like a heartbeat activating a system.
And then you compare that raw sonic code to the human patch.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
It's just so flat.
It is entirely monotonous. It's bureaucratic. It sounds like a legal deposition being read into a court record.
On the morning of the 1st, the suspect created the Earth.
Right. It methodically strips all the sonic power and frequency out of the code and replaces it with dry administrative data entry.
The researchers compare it to the difference between a pristine, high-fidelity master recording and a really scratchy, low-quality bootleg.
And the Superhead has been blasting that scratchy bootleg over the global PA system for thousands of years now.
And we're all sitting around in our modern lives wondering why we feel so chronically anxious, why we feel so entirely disconnected from the earth and each other.
Because we are literally listening to the bootleg. We're trying to dance to a rhythm that is fundamentally slightly offbeat from our own biology.
All right, let's move into section 2 of the audit. Because if changing Bereshit allowed the Superhead to control time, this next audit shows how they control identity.
This is the audit of the word Ben. And I have to say, this is where the research got deeply personal for me. This specific part of the file, I actually had to put the papers down and just stare at the wall for a good minute to process it.
It's heavy. So the standard patch translation we are all taught is that Ben simply means sun.
Right.
And in our highly westernized, modern, superhead control context, the concept of a son heavily implies a subordinate.
A child. Someone small.
Someone lower on the organizational chart.
But more importantly, someone who is waiting.
Yeah.
That is the critical psychological key here. In the Superhead's legalistic system, a son is legally an heir. And what is an heir? An heir is someone who is forced to sit around waiting for the father to die or step down so they can finally get access to the resources.
It's a complete dependency model.
Someday, son, all this will be yours, but not today.
Right. It forces a rigid hierarchy. The father is the untouchable CEO. The son is just the junior vice president who fetches the coffee and hopes for a promotion in 20 years.
But when Efron and Erfron dig into the etymological crime scene here, the receipts tell a completely different story. The root of the word Ben actually derives from the verb bana.
B-A-N-A-H.
Yes. And bana does not mean to be born. It certainly doesn't mean to inherit.
It means to build.
To build actively.
And that right there completely rewrites the entire profile of what a human being actually is in this system.
It changes everything. A Ben in the original code is not a helpless child waiting for a divine handout. A Ben is a builder. They are a physical, real-time iteration of the building process itself.
And the linguistic evidence backing this up in the file is just overwhelming. You look at the whole family of Hebrew words here. Ben meaning son, Bath meaning daughter, and Bayit meaning house.
They all emerge from that exact same root, bana.
Which means the son, the daughter, and the house, they aren't hierarchical subjects. They are all literal building blocks. They are active, sovereign agents of construction.
You really have to stop and think about how incredibly radical that concept is, because the Superhead system demands that you view yourself as passive.
I'm just a child of God.
Or I'm just a taxpayer. I'm just a citizen. I'm just a consumer in the market. It's all designed to keep you totally docile. It keeps you sitting on the couch, waiting for instructions.
Waiting for the patch update.
Exactly. Right? But the original code tells you that you are a builder right now. You are biologically designed to construct reality, not just passively inhabit a reality someone else built for you.
There is a compound word the researchers highlight that really seals this entire argument, eben.
The stone.
Right, the stum.
Yeah.
Eben is a linguistic fusion. It perfectly combines the word ab, meaning father or source, and the word ben, meaning son or builder.
So ab plus ben equals eben.
Exactly. Meaning a stone, the fundamental foundational material of reality itself, is quite literally defined as the active fusion of the source and the iteration.
It completely annihilates that artificial separation the superhead relies on. The elite management layer desperately wants you to believe that the source is way up there somewhere.
In the sky, in the cloud server, in the corporate headquarters.
Right. Untouchable. And you are stuck way down here in the dirt. But the linguistic reality of the word eben proves that the source and the builder are actually seamlessly fused together to create the stone. You aren't separated from the process. You are the material of the process.
You are the brick.
You are the brick. And you don't need a middleman or a mediator to be a brick. A brick just natively functions. It just is.
We also have to explicitly address the feminine architecture in this section of the audit, because the superhead has done a massive amount of damage on that front.
Oh, absolutely. They've completely suppressed it.
The file notes that the root bana to build is linguistically and structurally linked to the word bina,
which translates to understanding or intelligence.
This represents the systematic suppression of the mother's house, the bet M.
The superhead absolutely loves the rigid patriarchal structure. They love framing the father's house as this militaristic top-down chain of command because it's easy to control.
But the linguistics clearly show that the act of building bana physically requires structural understanding bina.
You literally cannot build a functional house without the architectural blueprint of understanding.
And the text even states that the woman was built bana from the rib. Now, I'll be honest. Growing up, I was taught the patch version of this. I thought the rib was just a random spare part. You know the old joke, Adam is walking around with one less rib?
Right. It's treated like a biological party trick.
But the researchers look at the actual word used there, sela, S-E-L-A.
Yes. And when you track how sela is used in every other context in these ancient texts, it never means a literal human bone. It is strictly an architectonic term.
It refers to structural load-bearing beams.
Or the side of a massive building. Or the architectural wing of a temple complex.
So the woman wasn't just magically made out of a spare bone. She was architected with bina. She was intrinsically endowed with the structural understanding of the entire operating system.
Exactly. The original code outlines a highly collaborative, integrated system. You have the ab representing the source intent. You have the ben representing the active builder. And you have the bina representing the structural understanding.
It's a horizontal, integrated team.
It is not a pyramid scheme.
But the administrative maneuver intentionally shifted Ben from builder to subject. They flattened the architecture.
Yeah.
And we have to ask why. Why make that specific change?
Because if you wake up and realize you are a builder, you instantly stop needing their system.
Right. You don't need a permit.
You can just build your own house. You can interface directly with the source intent. It exposes the whole thing as a corporate racket.
It really is.
If I can successfully convince you that you are just a helpless infant or a lost sheep or an incapable servant, then you have no choice but to rely on me. You need the priest. You need the politician. You need the licensed expert.
You need the administrative elite to officially grant you access to your own life.
It is the ultimate paradox. They weaponize family language to enforce a master-servant protocol. They call you a son specifically so they can treat you like an expendable employee.
We're all a family here at Global Core.
Exactly. We're a family. Now get back to your cubicle and hit your quotas.
Which brings us directly to the clinical psychological fallout of this specific patch. Because if you take a biological builder and you tell them they are merely an heir, and then you constantly tell them they aren't performing well enough to actually inherit anything yet, what does that do to a human mind?
It crashes it.
Section 3, the clinical audit of the burden of perfection.
This is the malware. This is the exact virus that is actively running in the background of almost every single human brain right now. I know, I feel it, you definitely feel it. Everyone listening is intimately familiar with this feeling.
We are diagnosing perfectionism here. But not in the trivial sense, not the, oh, I'm such a perfectionist, I like my desk tidy kind of way.
No, we are analyzing perfectionism as a deliberate systemic trap. The researchers explicitly identify this burden of perfection as an entirely artificial standard. It was engineered by the Superhead to guarantee constant chronic failure.
We have to make a very sharp distinction here between natural excellence and artificial perfectionism.
They are completely different things. Excellence is a naturally occurring state. Trees exhibit excellence. Animals exhibit excellence. They function efficiently within their environments. They grow. They adapt to stress.
But perfectionism is strictly a fear-based activity.
It is fundamentally the fear of rejection. It's this deep-seated panic that if I am not totally flawless in the eyes of the administration, I will be deleted from the system.
Now, the original code, the native operating system, it operates on the metric of good enough.
Which is such a trigger word for modern people. Good enough sounds terrible to us. It sounds like giving up. It sounds incredibly lazy.
Because we've been heavily patched to hate it. But the researchers point out that in actual structural engineering, good enough is the holy grail of design.
It really is. It means operating within tolerance. It implies functionality, resilience, authenticity.
Yeah.
If you design a bridge to be perfectly rigid, absolutely flawless and unmoving, the very first windstorm will shatter it.
It collapses under its own perfection.
Right. A bridge actually needs to sway. It has to be flexible. It needs to be good enough to dynamically absorb and handle the environmental stress.
But the elite administrative layer completely stripped out the good enough metric, and they replaced it with unattainable standards.
Academic grades,
Body mass index,
credit scores.
social status metrics, follower counts.
All of these metrics are entirely static. They are statues.
That's a great metaphor.
The Superhead ultimately wants you to be a statue. They want you perfect, frozen, easily categorized, and fundamentally dead, whereas the original code designed you to be a living stone. Adaptive, rough-textured, and actually alive.
But we have to address the motive. Why? Why does this elite layer expend so much energy trying to make us feel broken? This is where Efron and Erfron introduce a psychological diagnosis they call projective identification.
This is a devastating diagnosis of the Superhead itself. You have to try and imagine the psychological state of the elite class, the people actively running this admin layer. They were profoundly miserable.
The source texts literally describe them as eating the bread of sorrows.
They are completely trapped in what the researchers call the burnout lens, because it requires a massive, exhausting amount of daily energy to maintain the illusion of their own artificial power.
It is exhausting to pretend to be a god all day.
It is soul-crushing. And the massive insight here is that they are intensely jealous.
Jealous of the commoner.
Exactly. They are jealous of the commoner's peace because they look down at a person who is actually living within the original code, someone who just sleeps soundly at night, someone who genuinely loves their family, who is organically connected to the frequency of the earth, someone who is just happily building their little life.
And the elite absolutely hate it.
They despise it because it's the one thing all of their hoarded resources cannot buy.
So as a coping mechanism, they violently project their own internal chaos out onto the population.
They label the entire natural world as evil.
They call the natural human body fallen.
They classify the human mind as inherently broken. They essentially run a massive PR campaign to convince the commoner, hey, you are sick, you are deeply flawed, you are born incomplete.
It's the ultimate corporate scam. It's literally the oldest marketing trick in the playbook. You manufacture a problem so you can establish a monopoly on the solution.
If they can successfully convince the population that they are fundamentally broken, whether they use the framework of original sin or the modern framework of clinical body dysmorphia and generalized anxiety,
then the elite can pivot and sell them the administrative batches.
Exactly. Here, buy this premium skincare routine to fix your face.
Vote for this specific politician to save your country.
Join this specific religious institution to save your soul. Take this daily subscription pill to fix your brain chemistry.
They intentionally break your legs just so they can sell you the approved crutches.
And then they set you up on a recurring monthly billing cycle for those crutches.
And the clinical data in the file absolutely backs this up. The researchers point specifically to the massive systemic rise in medical coding, specifically the code F41.9.
F41.9, unspecified anxiety, which is essentially the medical industry's catch-all code. It basically translates to human being currently attempting to exist in a system that was explicitly not designed for human beings.
And if you look at the billing modifiers attached to these codes, Efron and Erfran, Note a massive dominance of subsequent encounter coding, the D code.
The D code, yes.
The medical system is explicitly structured to keep the patient in a state of chronic ongoing management. They actively penalize initial encounter definitive healing.
Because a permanently healed person, a person who realizes they are good enough, they just walk right out of the hospital and go build their own house.
Right.
A healed autonomous person is a terrible customer for the superhead. They want you perpetually sitting in the waiting room.
Which leads us directly into the darkest section of this entire audit. Section 4, hypernormalization and the 2026 administrative patch. Because clearly controlling the text wasn't enough for them anymore.
No, they've realized text can be retranslated. Now they're going after the actual biological hardware.
Before we get into the biology, though, we really need to unpack hypernormalization.
Right. The term comes from the anthropologist Alexei Yurchak. He was studying the final years of the Soviet Union before the collapse, and he posed a really fascinating question. How did a system that literally everyone knew was entirely failing manage to survive for so long?
And the answer he found is chilling. He discovered that everyone just mutually agreed to pretend.
Exactly. The political leaders would stand on a podium and give these grand speeches about record-breaking crop harvests, while the grocery store shelves were completely empty.
And the people standing in the crowd applauding the speech, they were actively starving.
And the journalists who printed the speech in the paper the next morning, they also knew there was no food. But everyone, top to bottom, actively participated in the ritual anyway, because that shared illusion was the absolute only structural framework holding their society together.
Yurchak coined a term for this specific psychological state. He called it living vini.
Living vini, which translates roughly to living outside.
Right. It's when you physically participate in the required rituals. You attend the mandatory corporate meetings, you use the approved HR jargon, you go cast your vote in an obviously manipulated election, but your internal consciousness is completely detached.
You're just going through the physical motions.
It marks a complete performative shift in a society. The point where the outward form permanently displaces the actual substance. In the medical field, they call it the audit trail.
Yes, the audit trail suddenly becomes vastly more important than the actual living patient. It literally doesn't matter if the treatment cured the patient or killed them. What matters to the system is whether or not the chart was coded correctly.
If the administrative paperwork is flawless, reality itself becomes totally irrelevant.
And the researchers argue that we are currently all living beneath globally. We all wake up and act like this fiat economy is real. We pretend the political theater isn't completely scripted.
But on a subconscious level, we all know it's just an administrative patch.
We know it's failing. And the Superhead knows it's failing too, which is why they are currently making their most aggressive move yet.
The convergence.
Exactly. They are actively converging the ancient textual patch with the brand new biological patch. This is what the researchers labeled the 2026 hardware upgrade, the culmination of the seed war.
To track this, we have to look at a very specific piece of financial data in the file, the 1953 trust.
This part blew my mind.
The researchers tracked a highly obscured financial vehicle that rapidly moved $577 million behind an impenetrable legal firewall, and they executed this transfer exactly 48 hours before a major strategic death occurred in the elite power structure.
But it's the specific year that matters most here, 1953.
What universally significant event happened in 1953?
James Watson and Francis Crick.
Exactly.
The official publication of the discovery of the double helix, the fundamental mapping of human DNA.
The moment the objective of the Superhead permanently shifted. Historically, they relied on mistranslated software. They used linguistics to control behavior, telling you, in the beginning, or telling you, you are a subordinate son.
But text is ultimately just software. And software can be hacked. It can be reread. It can be audited exactly like we are doing right this second.
So they realized they needed to seize control of the underlying hardware itself.
They look at the original code of human DNA, the literal biological source intent, and they view it as buggy legacy software. It's too unpredictable for them.
It's too good enough.
Right. It adapts, it gets sick, it has organic variations, it eventually dies, it escapes their control metrics.
So their stated goal now is to rebuild it. But they aren't using the organic Bana principle of natural building.
No, they want to forcefully rebuild it using synthetic gene editing. Technologies like CRISPR. They're actively attempting to position themselves as the ultimate biological architects.
It's that exact same ancient jealousy just wearing a lab coat.
God's code is too messy. We can synthesize it cleaner. We can engineer it to be quote-unquote perfect.
Is the ultimate burden of perfection directly applied to human biology at the molecular level?
Which brings us to the technological infrastructure they're using to execute this. The researchers highlight the development of what they call AI stargates,
The modern Babel.
literally translating to the gate of God. Technology has fully replaced the ancient ziggurat. The elite are utilizing advanced artificial intelligence to construct what the texts call a mysterion.
Define mysterion in this context.
It's an obscured secret tier of data access, a restricted administrative level. They are using AI to definitively categorize the global population. They want the algorithm to permanently dictate who qualifies as an elite builder with system access and who is biologically relegated to being a totally managed hireling.
The commoner.
Right. And they are deploying systems known as automated program repair, APR.
These are algorithms historically used to automatically detect and fix bugs in computer code without human intervention.
Exactly. But now the Superhead is positioning themselves as the domain experts over human behavior. They're the ones writing the commit descriptions for the human race.
They get to program the AI to decide what specific human traits are considered a bug and what traits are considered a feature.
Try to actually visualize that. An omnipresent AI system that constantly scans the biometric and behavioral data of humanity, and it flags an individual and says this unit is currently operating inefficiently. This unit is exhibiting non-compliant thought patterns. This unit's anxiety levels are fluctuating outside the permitted corporate metrics.
Let's automatically apply a biological or chemical patch.
It is the absolute peak of the burden of perfection, completely automated and inescapable.
And the surveillance grid required to execute this is already fully operational. It's not just facial recognition cameras on street corners. The researchers point directly to medical surveillance.
Specifically, IPOLI regulations and mandated electronic audit trails.
Most commenters genuinely believe HIPAA was enacted to protect their personal privacy.
Yeah.
Oh, my medical records are legally safe and locked away.
But the forensic audit reveals that IPA's primary structural function is defensible billing and maintaining a strict chain of custody over the human biological asset.
It provides the legal framework to digitally track the exact ICD-10 diagnostic codes of every single interaction you have with the system.
They are tagging you like livestock. Subject 4589 exhibited anxiety code F41.9 on this date. We successfully applied the approved pharmaceutical patch. Subject status is currently marked as managed.
It is horrifying. It systematically reduces the entirety of the human experience to a sterile data log on an elite server.
It is the terminal stage of hypernormalization. We are quite literally generating the data points for a control system that does not care in the slightest if we are actually alive or thriving. It only cares if our current state is billable.
It's incredibly chilling to see the receipts laid out like this. It really starts to feel like the administrative walls are just rapidly closing in on all of us.
It does feel suffocating. And this is absolutely the most critical pivot of this entire deep dive. The audit does not end there.
No, it doesn't. Because an audit isn't just about finding the fraud. It's about recovering the stolen assets. Section 5, the final audit and the directive to stop looking for saviors.
To dismantle this, we have to circle all the way back to their core motivation, the why. Why does the Superhead expend so much energy maintaining this massive illusion? Why the linguistic mistranslations? Why the crushing psychological burden? Why the obsession with gene editing?
It always comes back to jealousy.
Pure, profound jealousy. We have to constantly remind ourselves of this fundamental limitation. The elite cannot, under any circumstances, actually create source intent.
They lack the capacity.
They can only ever replicate form. They can manufacture a synthetic robot that perfectly mimics human facial expressions, but they cannot spark a soul. They can engineer a massive cathedral, but they cannot manufacture the Holy Spirit.
They can code an infinite digital metaverse, but they are entirely incapable of building a living universe. And because of that inherent limitation, they are absolutely terrified of the living stone.
They are terrified of the integrated human, the individual who has successfully reclaimed their status as Eben, the person who has actively fused the source intent with the organic builder.
Because an integrated Eben fundamentally does not require an external administrative structure to exist.
Right. They don't need the patch. They don't need the approval of the middleman.
The researchers describe the current dynamic perfectly. They say the elite currently use the common population as a massive offshore server for their own psychoses.
That's exactly what projective identification is. The superhead just relentlessly dumps all of their own internalized fear, their spiritual burnout, their intense self-hatred. They offload all of that corrupted data onto us. They scream at us, "You are the problem. Your biology is flawed. You desperately need us to fix you."
But the audit proves that is a lie. They are the ones who are completely disconnected from the frequency.
So the only logical solution to this crisis is the intentional conscious restoration of the Eben within yourself. You have to aggressively reclaim your original status as a living stone.
You have to fundamentally realize that you are not supposed to be a statue.
Stop trying to be one.
Stop trying to achieve this dead artificial perfection. Stop trying to be this flawlessly chiseled marble figure that never exhibits a single flaw or organic variation.
You are a living stone. By definition, you are supposed to be rough around the edges. You are textured. You are highly adaptive. You organically fit into the living wall of reality exactly as you are.
Efron and Irfan call this specific realization the good enough rebellion.
I absolutely love that term.
To intentionally choose to be good enough, to simply be functional, resonant, kind, and active as a builder, that is the ultimate act of defiance against the superhead's artificial burden of perfection.
Because the exact moment you firmly refuse to hate yourself for simply being a biological human, you instantly starve the entire administrative system of its fuel.
You stop buying their endless cycle of patches.
You stop engaging with their engineered outrage algorithms.
You stop frantically voting for their pre-selected saviors. So based on all the data in this file here is the closing directive for everyone listening, and you really need to hear this. Stop looking for saviors.
The superhead desperately wants you to sit quietly on the couch and wait for a hero. They want you waiting for a disruptive new politician, a billionaire tech mogul, a charismatic religious leader.
They want you trapped in the identity of an era, just endlessly waiting for the administrative will to be read.
But the original code fundamentally requires you to be a builder. You have to embody the Bana. You have to actively build your own house, build your own structural understanding, build your own internal peace, regardless of what the system is doing.
You need to immediately audit your own personal burden of perfection. You need to forensically identify exactly where in your daily life you are blindly performing rituals for a corporate system that actively hates you.
Ask yourself, where are you currently living anew? Where are you just faking compliance to avoid standing out?
You have to stop faking it. You have to purposefully return to the Bereshit frequency. You have to learn to live directly from the source intent, not trapped inside their linear timeline.
Reclaim the Ben. Become the builder.
Disconnect the patch.
It's the only way out.
We are officially closing the file on case study 001.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to process on your own. If this entire burden of perfection is indeed a completely man-made administrative trap, and the true original code simply requires you to be who actually profits the most when you look in the mirror and feel like you're failing.